6 months passed since the humans left the council chamber. Young-Soo sat in his small office in the intelligence division of the council and stared at his screens. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. He was responsible for monitoring the edge territories, the places where smaller species lived and sometimes died when bigger species decided to expand. It was a depressing job. He had watched 3 species go extinct in the past 10 years. The council had done nothing. They never did. But this was different. The Krell fleet had entered human space exactly on schedule. 300 warships, each one capable of destroying a planet. The Krell did not negotiate. They did not take prisoners. They arrived, they killed everything, and they moved on. Young-Soo had seen it happen before. He expected to see distress signals from Earth. He expected to see human ships trying to run. He expected to see the usual pattern of invasion and death. Instead, he saw nothing. Complete silence. At first, he thought his equipment was broken. He ran diagnostics 3 times. Everything worked fine. The human space was just quiet. No signals at all. No communications. No broadcasts. Nothing. 2 months after the Krell fleet entered human territory, Young-Soo went to his supervisor. "We have a problem," he said. His supervisor was a tired-looking alien with 4 eyes. "What kind of problem?" "The humans. The Krell. There are no signals from either of them." "So the humans are dead? Why is that a problem?" "There should be Krell victory broadcasts. They always broadcast their victories. They want other species to be afraid. But there is nothing." His supervisor thought about this. Maybe they are still fighting. For 2 months? With 300 Krell warships? That is impossible. But his supervisor was not interested. "Write a report." "I will file it. Now I have real work to do." Young-Soo went back to his office and wrote the report. He did not think anyone would read it. He was probably right. 3 months after the Krell fleet entered human space, something stranger happened. A second Krell fleet was detected. This one was much bigger, 1,000 ships. The Krell warlord himself was leading it. The Krell never sent their warlord unless something had gone very wrong. Young-Soo watched as the massive fleet crossed into human territory. He waited for the battle. He waited for some sign of what was happening. Again, nothing. Just silence. On the other side of the galaxy, Da-Un continued her normal life. She was a human who worked as a trade representative on one of the council stations. She had lived there for 5 years and knew many of the aliens. They were not bad people, most of them. They just did not care about species that were not useful. After the Krell fleets entered human space, aliens started asking her questions. "Have you heard from your family?" They would ask. "Are they safe?" Da-Un would smile politely. "My family is fine. Thank you for asking." But the Krell, "Earth is fine," Da-Un would say. Then she would change the subject. Some of the aliens thought she was in denial. Some thought she was lying to herself. One of them, a kind elderly being named Moro, pulled her aside one day. "I am sorry about your planet," Moro said gently. "I know this must be hard for you." "Why would it be hard?" Da-Un asked. "The Krell do not leave survivors. Everyone knows this." Da-Un looked at the old alien with something like pity. "The Krell attacked us. We defended ourselves. That is all. But how? Your species had barely developed fusion drives. The Krell have conquered systems for thousands of years." "Things change," Da-Un said. "Sometimes very quickly." She would not explain more. She had received clear instructions from Ambassador Tae-sun before the first Krell fleet arrived. "Say nothing to the council. Show them nothing. They laughed at us. They get no explanations." So Da-Un said nothing and went about her business and smiled when aliens asked her questions. Minji was a freighter captain who ran cargo between human colonies and neutral stations. She was used to being treated like she did not matter. Most aliens saw human ships and ignored them. Sometimes they would make jokes. "Still alive?" They would ask. "We thought the Krell ate you all by now." Minji would just nod and keep loading her cargo. But she noticed something changing. The aliens were nervous. They kept asking questions about human space. They wanted to know what happened to the Krell fleets. "We do not know," they would say to each other. 2 fleets go in. Nothing comes out. It makes no sense, Minji could have told them. She knew what happened. Every human in the galaxy knew. But Tae-sun had been clear. "The council gets nothing from us. Not information, not help, not even the satisfaction of knowing what they missed." So Minji kept quiet and watched as the council started to panic. Seth called an emergency meeting. He had reviewed Young-Soo's reports and finally understood that something was very wrong. The council chamber filled with worried delegates. "We have a situation," Seth announced. "2 Krell fleets have entered human space. Neither has returned. We have detected no communications. No battle debris. No victory broadcasts, nothing. Perhaps the humans destroyed them," someone suggested. Laughter, but it was nervous laughter this time, not like when Tae-sun stood before them 6 months ago. "The humans?" Seth said. "With what?" "They had barely mastered space travel. The Krell have weapons that can crack planets." "Then where are the Krell?" No one had an answer. "We need to investigate," Seth decided. "Send a probe to human space. Find out what happened." Young-Soo was given the task of sending the probe. It was a simple observation device with cameras and sensors. He programmed it to enter human space and report back what it found. The probe reached the human border and sent back one message. "Human space is closed to Galactic Council vessels. Turn back." The probe tried to enter anyway. It was destroyed immediately. Not damaged, not disabled, completely destroyed. The last sensor reading showed an energy weapon unlike anything in the Council database. Young-Soo brought this information to Seth. "They destroyed our probe?" Seth was angry now. They dared to fire on Council property? "They warned it first," Young-Soo pointed out. "I do not care about warnings. We need to know what happened to the Krell." "Then perhaps we should ask them politely," Young-Soo suggested. "The way they asked us for help 6 months ago." Seth turned his cold yellow eyes on Young-Soo. "You forget yourself. The humans are nothing." But even as he said it, Seth did not sound so sure anymore. The Council sent a diplomatic message to Earth. "We request information about the Krell fleets. As members of the galactic community, you have a responsibility to share this information." The response came back 3 days later. It was short. "We are not members of the galactic community. You made that very clear. What happens in human space is human business." The message was signed by Tae-sun. Seth read it 5 times. He remembered that day 6 months ago. He remembered laughing as the human ambassador gathered his broken tablets and walked away. He remembered calling after him, mocking him. "Perhaps," Seth said slowly, "we should reconsider our relationship with the humans." "You think they actually defeated the Krell?" someone asked. "I think something happened, and I think we need to find out what before we make any more mistakes." But it was too late for that. The Council had already made their mistake. They made it when they laughed at people who came asking for help. They made it when they dismissed an entire species as irrelevant. They made it when they forgot that sometimes the weak do not stay weak forever. Young-Soo went back to his office and looked at his screens. Human space was a dark spot on his map now. No information coming out. No ships going in. Just silence. The Council had laughed when the humans left without a word. Now that silence was terrifying them. And somewhere in that dark space, 50 billion humans went about their lives, protected by something the Council did not understand. Something they could not imagine. Something that had made 2 Krell fleets simply vanish. Young-Soo had a terrible feeling that the galaxy was about to change in ways the Council could not predict. And it was all because they had been too arrogant to help one species when it mattered. He thought about writing another report. Then he decided it did not matter. No one listened to his reports anyway. Instead, he just watched the darkness where human space used to be visible and wondered what was hiding in that darkness. Whatever it was, it had made the Krell afraid. And if the Krell were afraid, maybe the Council should be afraid too. The emergency beacon was detected at the edge of Council space exactly 3 months after the second Krell fleet disappeared. It was weak and damaged, but still broadcasting. Council ships rushed to investigate and found a single Krell escape pod, drifting in the darkness. Inside was a Krell warrior. The Krell were famous across the galaxy as fearless fighters. They were bred for war. They knew no mercy and they felt no fear. That was what everyone believed. But the warrior they pulled from that escape pod was shaking. His eyes were wide and he kept repeating the same words over and over in the Krell language. They were waiting. In the dark. They were waiting. The medical team tried to calm him down. They tried to ask him questions. What happened? Where is your fleet? What did you see? The warrior just kept repeating those words. They were waiting. In the dark. They were waiting. Then he died. His heart just stopped. The doctors said it was shock. His brain had been damaged by extreme stress. They had never seen anything like it in a Krell before. The Krell did not feel stress. They did not break. But this one had. Seth called another emergency meeting. The council chamber was more crowded than usual. Word had spread that something terrible had happened and everyone wanted to know what. "We recovered a Krell survivor," Seth announced. "He died shortly after we found him. But before he died, he said something. He said they were waiting in the dark." "Who was waiting?" someone asked. "The humans." "It must be the humans." The chamber erupted in noise. Everyone was talking at once. It was impossible. The humans were weak. They had begged for help. How could they have defeated 2 Krell fleets? A being made of living metal stood up. "We need answers. Send a diplomatic mission to Earth. A proper one. With full honors. We need to know what happened." "You want to honor them?" Seth said. "After we refused to help them? I want to know what weapon they used to destroy 1,300 Krell warships," the metal being said coldly. "And I want to make sure they never use it on us." The council voted. It was unanimous. They would send a delegation to Earth with a formal apology and a request for information. It was humiliating but necessary. Seth wrote the message himself. It was polite and careful. "The Galactic Council requests a diplomatic meeting to discuss recent events and to extend our apologies for any misunderstandings during our previous encounter." He sent it to Earth and waited. 1 week passed. Then 2, then 3. Seth was getting angry when the response finally came. "Your request is accepted. Send your delegation to Orbital Station 7. Ambassador Taesun will meet with them." That was all. No warmth, no friendliness, just cold acceptance. The council delegation was the largest ever assembled. Representatives from 20 different species made the journey to human space. Seth himself led them. As they approached the human border, their sensors detected things that made their military advisors very nervous. Human ships everywhere, not the small fusion drive vessels they remembered. These were something new, sleek and dark and moving in patterns that did not match any known technology. The ships did not challenge the council delegation, but they watched. Always watching. Orbital Station 7 was impressive. It was new, built in the 6 months since Taesun had visited the council. It was 5 times larger than anything the humans should have been able to construct in that time. The technology was advanced, maybe too advanced. So-Jin met them at the docking bay. She was young, maybe 30, and she wore a simple black uniform. Her face was polite but cold. "Welcome to human space," she said. "I am Minister So-Jin. I will be your guide." Seth tried to be friendly. "Thank you for receiving us. We hope to build better relations between our peoples." "That remains to be seen," So-Jin said. "Follow me, please." She led them through the station. The council delegates looked around with growing unease. Everything was clean and efficient. Human workers moved with purpose. The technology was everywhere, and it was not technology the council recognized. They entered a large conference room. The walls were covered with screens showing star maps and data. At the far end of the room, Ambassador Taesun waited. He looked older than he had 6 months ago. His hair had gone gray at the temples, but his eyes were sharp and hard. "Thank you for coming," Taesun said. He did not sound thankful. He sounded tired. Seth tried to start with an apology. "Ambassador, we regret that our previous meeting was not more productive. We hope to correct that mistake." "You hope to find out what happened to the Krell?" Taesun said bluntly. "Let me save us all some time." He pressed a button and the screens came alive. The council delegates watched in silence as footage played. The Krell fleet entering human space. 300 warships in perfect formation. Confident. Unstoppable. Then something emerged from the darkness between planets. Human ships. Dozens of them. They moved in patterns that made the council's military advisors gasp. The patterns seemed to bend space itself. The mathematics should have been impossible. The human ships fired. But these were not normal weapons. There were no explosions, no debris. The Krell ships simply stopped existing. One moment they were there, the next moment they were gone. Erased from reality like they had never been. The footage showed the second Krell fleet. 1,000 ships. The warlord's personal vessel at the center. The same thing happened. Human ships appeared. Strange weapons fired. The Krell fleet vanished. When the footage ended, The conference room was completely silent. "How?" whispered the metal being. "How is this possible?" Hyunwoo stepped forward. He was wearing a military uniform now with medals that showed he had been promoted. The weapons convert matter directly into energy and disperse it across multiple dimensions. The target does not explode. It simply ceases to exist in this reality. "That is theoretical physics," Seth said. His voice was shaking. "No one has made it work." "We did," Hyunwoo said simply. Taesun stood up and walked to the windows. Outside, human ships moved in their strange patterns. "When I came to your council 6 months ago, I believed in the galactic community. I believed that civilized species helped each other. I believed in cooperation and mutual defense." He turned to face them. "You laughed at me. You mocked us. You told us we were weak and deserved to die, and you taught us something very important." "What?" Seth asked quietly. "That we are alone, that we can trust no one but ourselves, that if we want to survive, we must have the strength to do it without help." Ji-won appeared with data tablets, real ones this time, not the broken ones from 6 months ago. She placed them carefully on the table. "These tablets contain technical information about our new technologies. Not everything, but enough for you to understand what you are dealing with." The council delegates reached for the tablets like they were reaching for weapons. They scrolled through the information and their faces showed horror. The humans had not just made one new weapon, they had revolutionized their entire technology base, faster than light communication through quantum entanglement. Artificial intelligence that could predict the future by analyzing probability fields. Energy shields that existed in multiple dimensions at once, and weapons that could erase entire fleets from existence. "You had this technology 6 months ago?" Seth asked. "We had the theory," Dong-hyun said. He was introduced as the chief science administrator. "We had laboratory experiments, but we never built it. We never deployed it. We believed we would join the galactic community and such weapons would be unnecessary." "And then we refused to help you," Seth said slowly. "Yes, you refused to help us. And in doing so, you freed us from any obligation to follow galactic norms. We had nothing to lose, so we took our most dangerous research and we made it real." Haewon, an admiral in crisp uniform, activated another screen. This one showed a star map of the galaxy. Red dots appeared in dozens of locations. "These are human ships. Scout vessels. They have been mapping the galaxy for the past 3 months, recording defense positions, analyzing fleet movements, understanding the strategic situation." The implications were clear. The humans were not just defending themselves. They were preparing for anything. "Are you threatening us?" demanded a delegate. Taesun's expression did not change. "No, we are clarifying our position. Humanity wants no war with the Council. We want no territory beyond our current borders. We want fair trade and respectful diplomatic relations. And if we refuse, then you will learn what the Krell learned. That underestimating humanity is fatal." The room fell silent again. The power balance had completely reversed. 6 months ago, these council members had laughed at a desperate human ambassador. Now they sat in a human station, surrounded by human weapons they could not match, and begged for peace. "What do you want?" Seth finally asked. Taesun sat back down. "We want what we asked for 6 months ago. Recognition, protection under council law. Fair treatment. The only difference is that now we can enforce it ourselves." "You could destroy us," Seth said quietly. "Yes, but we will not. Not unless you make us." The meeting continued for 6 more hours. Terms were discussed. Treaties were drafted. The council agreed to everything. They had no choice as the delegation prepared to leave. Seth approached Taesun privately. "I am sorry for what I said, for what we did." Taesun looked at him for a long moment. "Your apology means nothing. You are not sorry, you laugh, ma." 3 days after the council delegation left, Taesun stood in a secure briefing room deep inside Orbital Station 7. Around him sat the leaders of Earth's new military and scientific establishment. These were the people who had made the impossible happen. These were the people who had saved humanity. "The council has agreed to all our terms," Taesun said. He looked tired. The past 6 months had aged him. "They will ratify the Treaty of Earth next week. We will have full recognition, protected borders, and equal status in all galactic matters." "They had no choice," Hyunwoo said. He was standing by the window, watching the human fleet practice maneuvers in the distance. "We showed them what we could do. We showed them what we did to the Krell." corrected Heywan. They do not know everything we can do, and they should not. Not yet, Tae-sun nodded. Agreed. The weapons we demonstrated are enough to make them afraid. We do not need to show them everything. Subin, the military intelligence director, pulled up a holographic display. It showed the galaxy with human territory marked in blue. We have 43 scout ships active. They have mapped 70% of Council space. We know where their military bases are. We know where their supply lines run. We know their weaknesses. And they know we know, Sojin added. That is why they agreed so quickly. They understand that if we wanted to, we could cripple them. But we will not, Tae-sun said firmly. We are not conquerors. We never wanted to be. The room was quiet for a moment. Then Dong-hyun spoke. He was the scientist who had led the crash program to develop the new weapons. He looked even more tired than Tae-sun. I need to explain something. About the weapons. About what we did. Everyone turned to look at him. The technology we used against the Krell was not new, Dong-hyun said slowly. We developed it 20 years ago. The theory is even older. We had working prototypes 15 years ago. Why did we not deploy it? Hyunwoo asked. Because we were afraid of it, Dong-hyun said. The weapons do not just destroy ships. They erase them from reality. Matter stops existing in our dimension. We do not know where it goes. We do not know if it can come back. We do not know what the long-term effects are. He pulled up technical diagrams that made no sense to anyone but other scientists. We also developed the AI prediction systems. They work by analyzing probability fields across multiple timelines. Essentially, they peek into possible futures and choose the most likely ones. But that means we are affecting those timelines, maybe destroying them. We do not know. The room was very quiet now. The faster-than-light communication uses quantum entanglement on a scale that should not be possible, Dong-hyun continued. We are connecting particles across light years instantly, but quantum mechanics says this should not work at this scale. We are breaking fundamental laws of physics, or maybe we are discovering that those laws are not as fundamental as we thought. What are you saying? Tae-sun asked. I am saying that we unleashed technologies we do not fully understand because we had no choice. The Krell were coming. The Council refused to help. We did what we had to do to survive, but these weapons could have consequences we cannot predict. Heywan leaned forward. Are the weapons dangerous to us? I do not think so. Not directly. But we are changing the fabric of space-time every time we use them. We are affecting probability itself with our AI systems. We are reaching across dimensions we barely understand. There could be consequences. Could be, Hyunwoo said. But we are alive. Without these weapons, we would all be dead. I know, Dong-hyun said. I am not saying we made the wrong choice. I am saying we need to be careful going forward. We have become very powerful very quickly. Power without wisdom is dangerous. Tae-sun stood up and walked to the windows. Outside, Earth hung in space, blue and green and beautiful. 50 billion people lived down there, going about their lives not knowing how close they had come to extinction. We did what we had to do, he said quietly. When the Council laughed at us, when they dismissed our survival as meaningless, they gave us no choice. We could die like they expected, or we could do whatever it took to live. He turned back to the room. But Dong-hyun is right. We need to be careful. We need rules. We need limits. Because the Council was right about one thing. The galaxy has laws. The strong survive and the weak serve. We just proved we are strong. Now we need to prove we are wise. The Council will test us, Sojin warned. They agreed to the treaty because they are afraid. But fear fades. Eventually they will try to find our weaknesses. They will try to turn other species against us. They will try to limit our expansion. Let them try, Hyunwoo said. We are ready for anything now, are we? Tae-sun asked. We are ready for war. We are ready for weapons and battles. But are we ready for peace? Are we ready to live in a galaxy that now sees us as a threat? That question hung in the air. Jiwon, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. She was still young, but her eyes had hardened in the past 6 months. When I stood in the council chamber and they knocked the tablets from my hands, I wanted to scream at them. I wanted to make them understand that we were people, not numbers. Not statistics. People with families and dreams and hopes. She looked around the room, but they did not care. They would never care. Because we were weak, and weakness is not worth caring about. So I stopped caring about them. I stopped thinking of them as people worth respecting. That is dangerous thinking, Tae-sun said gently. I know, Jiwon said. But it is true. We need to decide what kind of species we want to be. Do we want to be like the Council? Powerful and cold and uncaring? Or do we want to be something better? We want to be safe, Byung-ho said. He was the security chief and his job was to think about threats. Everything else is secondary. No, Tae-sun said firmly. Everything else is not secondary. We survived. Now we need to decide what we are surviving for. If we become like the species who laughed at us, then what was the point? The debate continued for hours. Some wanted to isolate humanity, to build walls and trust no one. Some wanted to use their new power to reshape the galaxy. Some wanted to find a middle path. Finally, Tae-sun held up his hand for silence. Here is what we will do. We will honor the treaty with the Council. We will trade with them and talk with them. But we will trust them never. We will continue to develop our technology. But we will put limits on the most dangerous research. And we will help other species who are in the position we were 6 months ago. Help them how? Subin asked. There are dozens of smaller species that have petitioned the Council for protection over the years. Species like us, weak, vulnerable, asking for help. The Council ignored them just like they ignored us. We will not ignore them. You want to build an alliance? So-jin asked. I want to build something better than the Council, Tae-sun said. Something that actually protects the weak, instead of dismissing them. Something that proves civilization means more than just power. Hyun-woo shook his head. The Council will see that as a threat. Everything we do is a threat to them now, Tae-sun said. We cannot change that. But we can choose what kind of threat we want to be. We can be the species that destroys anyone who challenges us. Or we can be the species that protects those who cannot protect themselves. Both, Haewon suggested. We can be both. Strong enough to destroy our enemies, kind enough to protect our friends. Tae-sun smiled for the first time in days. Yes, both. We will be what the Council should have been. The meeting ended with a plan. Humanity would take its place in the galaxy, but on its own terms. They would be strong but not cruel, powerful but not arrogant. They would remember what it felt like to be weak and dismissed, and they would never let anyone feel that way again if they could help it. As everyone filed out of the room, Dong-hyun stopped Tae-sun. Do you really think we can do this? Be powerful and kind at the same time? Tae-sun was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I do not know, but we have to try, because if we cannot, then the Council was right about us. We were nothing special after all. We are special, Dong-hyun said. We survived. Everyone survives, Tae-sun said. The question is what we do with that survival. That is what will define us. Outside the window, Earth continued to turn, beautiful and fragile and alive. 1 year had passed since the Council ratified the Treaty of Earth. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Tae-sun stood in his office on the new human embassy station and watched ships come and go through the windows. Some of them were human. Many were not. The smaller species had started coming 3 months after the treaty was signed. First just a few, then dozens, then hundreds. They were the species the Council had dismissed over the years. The weak ones, the irrelevant ones, the ones who asked for help and were laughed at. They came to humanity because humanity remembered what that felt like. So-jin knocked on his door and entered without waiting for an answer. They had worked together so long now that formality seemed pointless. The Valorian Commerce Minister wants to meet with you. They want to purchase our defensive AI systems. They want to purchase the technology that makes them obsolete, Tae-sun said with a slight smile. Yes, and they are willing to pay a lot for it. Should I schedule the meeting? Schedule it. But we will not sell them the complete systems. We will sell them enough to defend themselves, but not enough to threaten others. So-jin nodded. This had become their policy. Share technology, but always hold something back. Trust no one completely. The Seth Confederation sent another apology today. Their 5th one this month. Are they sincere? Does it matter? They are afraid. Fear makes people sincere. Tae-sun turned from the window. That is a cynical view. I learned it from you, So-jin said with a slight smile. You told me once that the Council's apology meant nothing. That they were not sorry they laughed at us, just sorry we became strong. I remember. And I was right. But that does not mean we should think that way about everyone. Da-yoon entered the office next. She had been promoted to senior trade coordinator and spent most of her time negotiating agreements with species who had never taken humanity seriously before. We have a problem. The Council is proposing new restrictions on dimensional weapons. They want all species to agree not to develop or deploy them. In other words, they want us to give up our main advantage, Hyunwoo said. He had followed Daewon into the office. Military advisors went everywhere these days. We will not agree to that, Taesun said. But we can propose our own restrictions. Dimensional weapons only for defense, never for conquest, with inspection protocols that apply to everyone including us. The Council will never agree to inspections, Hyunwoo said. Then they do not really want restrictions on dimensional weapons. They just want to limit our power, and we can say that publicly. Sojin made notes. That will embarrass them. Good, Taesun said. They should be embarrassed. They want us to give up our weapons while they keep theirs. That is not peace. That is domination. Later that day, Taesun met with ambassadors from 6 smaller species. They were nervous, these ambassadors. They came from worlds with populations in the millions, not billions. Their militaries were small. Their technology was limited. They were exactly where humanity had been 1 year ago. We come to ask for protection, the first ambassador said. She was from a species called the Moru. They looked like small furry mammals with big eyes. The Krell are expanding again. They are moving toward our space. The Krell? Taesun asked. I thought they had withdrawn after losing their fleets. They did. But they are building new fleets. And they are angry. Very angry. Taesun sat back in his chair. The Council will not help you. No, they said we are too small to matter. They said we should negotiate with the Krell. The Moru ambassador's eyes were wet. But the Krell do not negotiate. You know this. Yes, Taesun said quietly. We know this. Another ambassador spoke up. He was from a species called the Drin, tall and thin with blue skin. We do not ask for your weapons. We do not ask for your ships. We ask only for what you ask the Council for. Help, protection, a chance to survive. The third ambassador was older, her scales gray with age. We know you have no reason to help us. We know we have nothing to offer you. We are weak and you are strong, but we ask anyway because we have nowhere else to go. The room was silent. Taesun looked at these ambassadors and saw himself 1 year ago. Desperate, afraid, hoping that someone in the galaxy would care enough to help. We will help you, he said. The relief in the room was immediate and overwhelming. The Moru ambassador started crying. The Drin ambassador bowed so low his forehead touched the table. There are conditions, Taesun continued. We will defend your space. We will provide military support and technology, but you must agree to certain principles. No conquest, no slavery, no genocide. You must treat other species the way you want to be treated. We agree, they all said at once. Good, then we will begin immediately. After they left, Hyunwoo stayed behind. We cannot protect every weak species in the galaxy. No, Taesun agreed. But we can protect these ones. And others will see. They will understand that there is an alternative to the Council. The Council will not like this. The Council does not like anything we do, but they cannot stop us. Over the next 6 months, humanity deployed defensive fleets to protect 4 smaller species. The Krell tested them once, sending a small fleet to attack a Moru colony. The human ships arrived within hours. The Krell fleet disappeared just like the others had. The Krell never came back. Word spread across the galaxy. If you were small and weak and the Council would not help you, go to the humans. They remembered. They cared. They would help. But not everyone saw this as a good thing. Young-soo, who still worked in Council intelligence, sent a private message to Taesun. They had developed a strange friendship over the past year. Young-soo had been one of the few Council members who seemed genuinely troubled by how the humans were treated. You are making enemies, Young-soo wrote. The Council sees your protection of smaller species as an attempt to build a rival power base. They are discussing ways to limit your influence. Taesun wrote back. Let them discuss. We are not trying to build an empire. We are just helping people who need help, something the Council forgot how to do. I know, but be careful. The Council has existed for 10,000 years. They have survived by eliminating threats. They may see you as a threat. They already do, and they are right to. We are a threat to their system where might makes right and the weak do not matter. Minji, the freighter captain, had become wealthy in the past year. Human ships were in demand everywhere. Everyone wanted to trade with the species that had defeated the Krell twice. She told Taesun once over drinks, The aliens who used to ignore me now compete for my business. The ones who made jokes about humans now want to be our friends. Does that bother you? Tae-sun asked. A little. They do not like us. They fear us. There is a difference. Yes, but fear keeps us safe. Like keeps us dead. Minji thought about that. So we choose safety over friendship. We choose survival over everything, Tae-sun said. We can have friends, but we can never forget that when we needed help the most, no one came. No one cared. They laughed at us and waited for us to die. Will you ever forgive them? Tae-sun was quiet for a long time. I do not know. Maybe. But I will never forget. 2 years after Tae-sun walked out of the council chamber without a word, he was invited back. Not to petition, not to beg, but as an equal. As the representative of a major galactic power, the chamber looked the same. The high seats were still there, the glowing crystal walls, the same delegates sitting in the same positions. But everything was different. When Tae-sun walked in, there was no laughter. There was silence. Respectful, fearful silence. Seth stood to greet him. Ambassador Tae-sun, welcome. We are honored by your presence. Tae-sun nodded politely. Thank you. He took his seat among the other delegates. Not below them. Not standing in the center like a supplicant, but equal, as it should always have been. The council discussed various matters. Trade disputes, border conflicts, scientific cooperation. Tae-sun listened and spoke when appropriate. His voice carried weight now. When he made suggestions, people listened. When he objected to something, the council reconsidered. At the end of the session, Seth approached him privately. Things have changed between us. Yes, Tae-sun agreed. I want you to know that I regret what happened. Truly regret it. Tae-sun looked at the old serpentine being. He looked smaller somehow. Older. Tired. Do you regret laughing at us, or do you regret that we survived? Seth was quiet for a moment. Both. I regret laughing because it was cruel and beneath the dignity of this council. I regret that you survived because you are right. You are everything we should have been and are not. You help the weak. You remember what matters. You have become what we pretended to be. It was the most honest thing any council member had ever said to Tae-sun. Then change, Tae-sun said. Be better. The council can still be what it claims to be, but it will take work. And humility, and remembering that every species matters, not just the strong ones. Will you help us? Tae-sun thought about that. About the hatred he had carried for so long. About the desire for revenge. About the satisfaction of seeing them afraid. And he thought about the Moru ambassador crying with relief. About the smaller species who now had hope. About the galaxy that could be better than it was. Yes, he said finally. We will help. Not because you deserve it, but because it is the right thing to do. The message arrived on a Tuesday morning, which was already a bad start for anything trying to be taken seriously. Every screen across Earth, from the smallest personal device to the massive displays in city centers, suddenly went dark. Then, in what the sender probably thought was an impressive display, a holographic figure appeared. The alien was tall, covered in dark scales, with 4 arms and eyes that glowed red. Behind him stood rows of soldiers in gleaming armor. The creature spoke in a voice that had been translated into every human language simultaneously. People of Earth, I am Supreme Commander Vreltak of the Vrelian Empire. We have conquered 200 star systems. We have defeated countless species. Your planet is now in our sights. You have 30 of your days to surrender completely. Give us control of your world, your technology, and your resources. If you refuse, we will destroy every city, every ship, and every trace of your existence. This is your only warning. We are power. We are inevitable. We are your doom. The message ended. The screens returned to normal. And then something unexpected happened. People started laughing. At the United Earth Defense Council headquarters in Seoul, Commander Doyeon Park sat at his desk, watching the message for the 3rd time. His assistant, Lieutenant Minho Choi, stood nearby, trying very hard not to smile. Did he just say they are inevitable? Doyeon asked, rubbing his temples. Did they steal that line from a movie? Yes, sir, Minho replied. Also, they misspelled annihilation in the text version. They wrote it with 1 N instead of 2. Doyeon looked at the document on his screen. Sure enough, there it was, the most powerful empire in the galaxy, threatening to unleash annihilation upon humanity. He started laughing. He couldn't help it. They're trying to scare us, Doyen said, still chuckling. They probably do this to every species they meet. Show up, look scary, make threats, and everyone just surrenders out of fear. Should we be scared, sir? Minho asked. Doyen thought about it for a moment. Earth had been preparing for potential alien contact for decades. Humanity had spread across several star systems. They had advanced technology, powerful weapons, and most importantly, they had learned from their own history. Humans knew what bullies looked like. No, Doyen said finally. But we should respond. Get me a camera crew. I want to make an announcement. 2 hours later, Commander Doyen Park stood before cameras broadcast to every human world. He held a printed copy of the Vrelian Declaration in his hand. His expression was serious, but his eyes sparkled with barely contained amusement. People of Earth and all human colonies, he began. Today we received a declaration of war from the Vrelian Empire. I want to assure you all that we take this matter very seriously. He paused, then held up the document. Seriously enough to point out that they misspelled annihilation. They also used the word inevitable, which, as my teenage daughter informed me, is very cringe and giving off major villain energy. Across human space, people stopped what they were doing to watch. And then they started laughing too. Doyen continued. The Vrelians have given us 30 days to surrender. In response, I would like to offer them our own 30-day timeline. Day 1 through day 30, we politely decline their offer. We will now return to our regular schedule, already in progress. The broadcast ended. Within minutes, social media exploded. Someone made a meme of Supreme Commander Vreltak's face with the caption, "When you try to sound scary, but autocorrect isn't working." Another person created a video compilation of every movie villain who said something was inevitable and then lost anyway. Famous comedian named Hana Kim announced she was doing a special show called We're So Scared that very evening. It sold out in 10 minutes. During the show, she performed an entire routine about the Vrelian message, acting out how confused the aliens must be right now. Imagine them, Hana said on stage, sitting in their big scary war room waiting for our terrified response. And instead, they're getting memes. Thousands of memes. They're probably looking at their screens thinking, what is this? Why are they laughing? Did we accidentally send them a comedy routine instead? The audience roared with laughter. The show was broadcast across the galaxy. Other alien species, many of whom had actually surrendered to the Vrelians, watched in confusion and then wonder. Were these humans insane? Or were they just brave enough to do what no one else had done? Back at Earth Defense Headquarters, Lieutenant Minho Choi was tasked with writing the official response to the Vrelian Declaration. He decided to have some fun with it. The response was formatted like a customer service review. Dear Vrelian Empire, the message began. Thank you for your declaration of war. We appreciate you taking the time to threaten us. However, we have found several areas where your service could be improved. First, your message delivery was intrusive and disrupted our morning routines. Second, your spelling and grammar need work. Third, your threat level was underwhelming. We rate this invasion attempt 2 out of 5 stars. Please find attached a feedback form for future improvements. The message included an actual feedback form with questions like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how scary did you think you were? And, would you recommend declaring war on Earth to a friend? When this response reached the Vrelian Empire, Supreme Commander Vreltak stood in his war room, staring at the message in disbelief. Around him, his officers looked equally confused. They're mocking us? One officer said carefully. This must be some kind of psychological trick, another offered. They're trying to hide their fear. But Vreltak knew better. In his 800 years of military service, he had conquered dozens of worlds. He knew what fear looked like. And this wasn't it. These humans were genuinely not afraid. Worse, they were making jokes. This is an insult to our empire, Vreltak growled. No species has ever dared to laugh at us. We will make an example of these humans. Prepare the first strike fleet. 50 warships. We will attack their outer colonies and show them what real power looks like. But sir, one of his advisors said nervously, what if this is a trap? What if they want us to attack? Vreltak's eyes glowed brighter with anger. A trap? They are making jokes. They sent us a feedback form. These humans are either incredibly stupid or incredibly arrogant. Either way, they will learn to fear the Vrelian Empire. Send the fleet. Back on Earth, Doyen Park received the intelligence report. The Vrelians were sending ships. Finally, they would see what humanity was really capable of. He called a meeting with his top officers. They took the bait, Doyen said. Get Admiral Tajenko ready. Make sure Station Sejong is prepared. And someone tell Hana Kim we might need another comedy special after this. This is about to get interesting.